Morning, wonderful listeners. Welcome to Majak Radio 92.2 FM, live in Bakau, Newtown South. You are listening to the Spill It with me, Cecilia Mendy, the program that comes your way every Wednesday. Today, we are discussing talking to children about menstruation. Talking to children about menstruation is more than just biology, it's about building trust, breaking down stigma. It's important for every female child to understand that periods are normal, health, and nothing to be ashamed of or scared of. Whether you are preparing a child for their first period or answering a sibling's curious questions, the conversation truly matters. With me is Locandich Sylvia Gomez. Loca, the founder of Project 21 Path Drive. She is a mechanical engineer and a social justice advocate. You are welcome, Loca.
Thank you very much.
So, Loca, what did you wish you knew earlier about menstruation?
To start with, I think I wish I knew the correct details of menstruation, how it occurs, what happens to the body when menstruation occurs, and at what period I should expect it. If I knew this earlier, let's say if I had the idea around my fifth or sixth age, then I would not be shocked or surprised to see myself, to see blood coming from my body. So this is one thing I wish I knew earlier.
What was your feeling the first time you experienced menstruation?
I was a bit shocked because my menstruation came extremely earlier than all of my peers. So most of them did not know what was happening. So I was shocked. I didn't have any materials and the school didn't have any materials. So I had to just clean myself and walk home. So that shock and embarrassment was also there.
So should we say menstruation should be introduced as a curriculum in schools?
Yes, it should start. I would say there should be a broader discussion on menstruation, something that is not just limited to a day session, because in fourth or fifth grade, you'll have children being taught about the science of menstruation, but most of it is not in depth. It's just to explain what puberty is. And instead of just saying girls go through menstruation during puberty and skip it, it's important that menstruation takes a whole lot more delving into. Then they can explain the science, the social aspect of menstruation as well, and also encourage and discuss with young girls and the boys on menstrual hygiene and mental health associated with menstruation.
Yeah, that's very important. So, should menstrual products be treated like other hygiene items like toilet rolls, toilet paper, soap, and every other thing? Because most of the time when you go, you don't meet them there.
Different supermarkets have a different way of categorizing their products. Most times, sanitary pads are part of the sanitary products, and they're all placed on the same aisle. And because as homeowners or people in the home, we find sanitary pads on the same aisle with soap and everything else, we tend to package the sanitary pads at home as well in the same aisle where we keep all these materials. Sanitary pads are quite materials that are used in menstruation, not just sanitary pads, the tampons and all other materials, the menstrual cup as well, should be segregated. It's not supposed to be in the same box as the soap and all of that. Reason being, you are risking a lot of transmission of germs from the other items in the box or other items in that particular aisle to the menstrual pack. Unless the menstrual pack, which is either the menstruation pad, the sanitary pad, or the sanitary cup, or the tampon is in its folder, if it's in its own packaging, then you're at a lower risk of having germs penetrate. But if it's just left open, like if it's a user at home who has already opened the pack and you still have different sets of sanitary pads in the pack, you are at a higher risk of having germs even penetrate or get into the sanitary pads before your usage, which could also cause a lot of issues in the long run. So
Interesting.
basically, we should really treat sanitary pads different and keep it in a place that is not cool, extremely cold or extremely damp.
That's
Not damp at all, yeah.
that's very interesting there. So from your pad drive project, you supplied young girls or schools and communities pad. What inspired that pad drive project?
Like I explained, when I first saw my when I first saw my menstruation, my period, there was no sanitary pad in the entire school at that moment. There was no teacher who could say there is a sanitary pad for you that you can use until after school. There was no one that was ready to even purchase a sanitary pad. And when I moved from primary school to junior school, it would be the teachers themselves who would buy a sanitary pad and keep it in their lockers in case one person has their period in school and they're not really prepared with a kit. In senior school, it was a bit similar, but I went to St. Peter's where the school had a particular budget for sanitary pads. But it was only for emergency purpose. So it was more or less children who were coming from areas where there's a lot of stigma on asking about sanitary products would have to end up using tissue paper or other products rather than go to a teacher and ask for a sanitary pad. So I questioned myself, if I am brought up in the greater Banjul area and I am still facing these difficulties, what about somebody who is brought up in Sabah Njayan or someone who is in Basse, like in the deep remote areas, not just towns that are on the highway, but what about people who would have to commute to school and take 20 minutes to school? What happens if during that 20 minutes to school they see their period? What happens when they're in that particular remote school and they see their period? Who is helping them? Because I would expect that I have more access to sanitary pads. I have more access to shops here than the schools that are in the rural communities. And I am still facing these difficulties. So this is what brought about the Project 21 Pad Drive.
Nice. So this is a very, very interesting question. Should we say the government is ignoring the needs of women since condom is cheaper depending on the one you need or sell, or who sells it rather?
Actually, condoms are free. In most parts of the country, yes. There is a particular project that would deliver condoms to either young people or to anybody that needs it. And there are certain spaces in this country where you can go into and pick up a condom. And unfortunately, it's not the same for sanitary pads. There is no institution in the country that is heard of where you can actually access sanitary pads freely, that you can just walk in and pick up a sanitary pad. And I wouldn't say the government has completely abandoned that, but they have turned a really dark eye to this particular cause. It was until recently that one of the National Assembly members is now calling for a tax-free on sanitary products. And this is something we have been advocating for the past few years, for the past 5-6 years, calling on government to exempt sanitary products from the tax bracket. Sanitary condoms, yes, they're extremely free and they're cheaper. Sanitary pads cost way more, and it's more expensive in rural communities than even in Banjul. And unfortunately, when it comes to quality sanitary pads, we only have a few. And now we have to shift the conversation. It's not just the accessibility. How positive are we that the sanitary pads that are coming into the country are fit for use? So we only have a few, and it's like 2 or 3 brands that are being imported that meet the international standard of sanitary pad production. All the others are below the standard. And one particular one that is very, very affordable that almost all the girls are using is rumored to be made from recycled paper.
So pads are mostly not available in all institutions. Let's say for those in primary schools, pads are rarely available for them. And you know, some people do not understand their menstrual cycle. So what would you advise the head teachers or institution regarding this case?
I would say the institution themselves need a training on menstrual hygiene. So it's not that just the children, even the teachers themselves don't understand menstruation. So I would find it really disturbing if someone says, there is a release of an egg, and if it's not fertilized, and that particular egg is what comes out as blood. But it's the same teacher who says that particular egg is invisible to the eye. So if the egg is a cell which is invisible to the eye, how can it contain that amount of blood that would flow for 4 days, 5 days, 6 days? So it's not logical. It doesn't really make sense. And I it just boils down to the teachers themselves not understanding menstruation. So if they don't understand what menstruation is, they cannot really explain it to the child. And if all the teachers, most of the teachers in the primary schools, you have more males in most of the government schools than female teachers. And most of them downplay cramps. Most of them would downplay headaches that are associated with menstruation. Most of them would downplay back pain that is associated with menstruation. So if a little child tells you, I have back pain, I have cramps also, they would tell you, well, welcome to womanhood. This is what you'll have to go through the whole year. That is not correct. It's not just the sanitary pad that needs to be available. I am of the belief that every school should have a first aid kit. It's a must to have a first aid kit. But in that first aid kit, there should be at least some painkillers. And these painkillers is what you should actually help the child with, or some heat. Because in the cold season, you would have children who would have cramps that would be heavier. And if the teachers don't understand cramps, if the teachers don't understand even the formation of menstruation, well, menstruation is the flowing of the lining of the womb. Because once you're preparing for reproduction, it's the lining of the womb that gets thicker. And it's this blood that now flows out as menstruation. It's not the egg. So this is something you need to understand. You need to also understand how the cramps are formed. You need to understand what is associated with menstruation before passing it on to younger children.
In your vast knowledge of menstruation, how can a woman remain hygienic while menstruating?
In this Gambia, so it's a big question if it's in this country. We now have different sanitary pads in the market. We have the disposable and we have the reusable. So it's something that there are certain things, a whole kit that you need to have, a menstrual pant, a particular pant that you use only for menstruation. And this is something a lot of people don't have. It starts from the pant. In Gambia, almost all the girls would wear the pant, the tights, another trouser, and then they wear another heavy clothing on top. Now, this would give you a lot of heat in your pelvic area, and the heat could be very, very detrimental to your health. And especially when you're menstruating, it would lead to you having a lot of heat around your pelvic zone, and you're also pressing a sanitary pad on your genitals. So unfortunately, that entire heat is very conducive for bacteria to grow. So this is the reason why we have a lot of women in the country that have a lot of infections. So I would say it's easier to have women use disposable sanitary pads. But in most parts of the country, we now deliver reusable sanitary pads. And if they're using disposable sanitary pads, it shouldn't last more than 4 hours. If it goes beyond 4 hours, you are at a chance of having more and more bacteria growing underneath you, which could go into your system and as well harm you. So unfortunately, all the infections, most of the infections that we have, that a lot of people will tell you from menstruating, oh, I'm still having this particular pain, I'm still experiencing this, or I still have this particular discharge. It's all linked back to the whole process of taking care of yourself during menstruation. And I know a lot of girls don't do this, but even after menstruation or even before menstruation, throughout your cycle, especially during this hot season, you should go. You don't go more than 4 or 5 hours without visiting a bathroom to clean up yourself. So there are girls that do douching, and douching would also lead to infections, but it's just to clean yourself. The vagina is a self-cleaning organ, but when you are during menstruation, you also want to keep yourself comfortable. If you can change your sanitary pad between 2 to 4 hours, depending on the flow, but it cannot go beyond 4 hours. And most times we're at work or school and it doesn't allow us to really change. Most of our toilets, even at school, don't have a bin where we can throw a sanitary pad. So a lot of people don't also want to keep the sanitary pad. They already used one in their bag. So they would rather keep a sanitary pad on for 8 hours because they're in a school that doesn't provide them soap, water, and a bin in the toilet. And once they keep that sanitary pad for 8 hours, they have a problem because bacteria divides itself every 20 minutes. So if you had one bacterium right on the sanitary pad because of 4 or 5 hours that you've used it, when you extend it to another 4 hours, you're talking about a lot of bacteria.
Pad drive. Is it just basically on the rural area? Do you guys focus on one area, or it's basically for every area in the Gambia?
Primary focus is on rural communities. Then we do a lot of other distributions. Last year we did distributions at the Gambia prisons as well, and we had distributions at hospitals, but in certain school areas in the country, yes. Mostly rural communities, but we have done in Banjul and in Greater Banjul area, even Kanifing as well. But we focus mainly on rural communities. So it's more or less if we have 300 sanitary pads to deliver, we would deliver 250 in rural community and 50 in Greater Banjul.
Great. So we have a question from Ya Edenjai. She said, what does she say to the saying that cramps is a lot when one is unmarried, but once into marriage, cramps reduces? That is the first question.
It's a myth.
Okay.
Our bodies are different. What could actually give me cramps would be different from what you would observe that if I use these particular products, my cramps intensify. So it's completely a myth. There are certain people that would give birth and their cramps would reduce, but there are certain people who would not experience cramps until they give birth, and then they'll have cramps.
Okay. Now, Loka, what would be your advice for the ladies regarding menstruation and pad usage?
I would say be very cautious. Wash your hands before you use sanitary products, and wash your hands after using sanitary products. Do not succumb to the myths that we already face, that the society is telling us, but do your research well. There's a lot of information, especially on WHO's website, on how to be extremely cautious and hygienic during your menstruation. Do a lot of research and know the facts. The society will always mislead you, but once you're more educated on the topic, you have an upper hand.
Thank you, Loka, for your time and contribution on this program. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Majak Radio 92.2 FM. And I would like to leave this with you. Let your daughter, sister know menstruation is not embarrassing to talk about. Get her a sanitary pad and teach her how to use it properly. Let her understand the signs her body is showing. Talk about hygiene. She would know to bath or at least clean herself with water during every pad changes to stay fresh and healthy. This was the Spill It. Until we come your way next Wednesday, stay beautiful and goodbye.